Okay, everyone, welcome again to another Finance Friday. I am Jerry, the owner, founder, CEO of Wealth Dynamics. And if you're just tuning in for the very first time, we do these courses every single week. This is called Finance Friday. And so every week for over 3 years, almost 4 years, I believe, we've been coming to you guys with a course on money and on finances. Now, tonight is going to be no different. And I'm going to talk to you tonight about one of my favorite topics. It's actually the topic of legacy and estate planning. Okay. And what I mean by that is the idea and the plan of leaving money for our heirs, right? Leaving money for our heirs so that we can have them starting off where we left off. Okay. And basically, what most people do in this category is nothing. Like, so when I think about my mom passed away in 2013, there wasn't a whole lot of estate planning going on. It wasn't something she thought about. When I see most of my friends, when their parents have passed away, usually there's not an estate plan in place. And they usually have someone in the family that's trying to scrounge around and figure out how all of this stuff works. And so tonight, what I want to go over is, not just the basics, but how to actually be intentional, right? Like how to leave the right estate plan, the right legacy plan, so that this is not, just not something that's an inconvenience, but also something that is a tool for us. Okay. So before I dive into this tonight, guys, same things I always talk about. So first things first, if there's anything that I say that we go over, I want you to ask questions if it's something you don't understand. If I go over any words, definitions, concepts where you're like, that didn't make sense, ask questions, leave them in the comments, and we'll definitely answer those. Secondarily is I want you to think about how you can apply this information, okay? Whether you're somebody that has built up significant assets and you're thinking about, okay, this applies to me, how do I set up my estate plan? Or whether you're somebody that's maybe brand new and you're in your young 20s and you're like, I don't own much, why do I need to know this, right? Think about how do I apply the information tonight? And that's going to be your purpose for being here. And then thirdly, of course, you want to make sure that you're being a producer, not just a consumer, right? So this kind of goes back to the last point of make sure you're thinking about how do I implement the information. I want you to think from a standpoint of being a producer, not a consumer. You're not here to take and have and get information that you're just going to sit on. It's okay. How do I contribute while I'm here? How do I ask questions? How do I, make sure that if something doesn't make sense, I am putting it in the comments? How do I think about how to apply this? And having that mindset is going to help you much more with this course tonight. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go over estate planning. Okay. And so we will be using old school PowerPoint. So let me pull this up. I haven't done a PowerPoint in a long time. This is something our estate planning team actually put together for utilization. And so thank you to our network attorney, Sierra, for building this. But this is going to help guide us through. Okay, so the idea of estate planning. So this says, what is estate planning? It's the act of preparing for the transfer of a person's wealth or assets after his or her death, right? So you think about the blueprints. Okay, the blueprint helps us build wealth. It helps us build financial freedom. And so we're thinking about, okay, we have, passive income that exceeds our savings, expenses, and taxes. We have our assets built up. We have, at some point more wealth than we can actually live on and spend. And so the idea is that our wealth is not something we just achieve, but it's something we keep and continue to grow throughout our lifespan. Okay, and so when we get to the point of, old age and passing away, we really should have assets left. Like it shouldn't be gone and depleted. And this conflicts with the current retirement planning system where the idea is, hopefully you die before you run out of money, but you're not going to have a lot left because you're depleting this nest egg the entire time. The idea that I build up a 401k balance and I, turn 65 and I start withdrawing off it and slowly depleting it over time really is something that's kind of outdated and something that puts us in a position where estate planning might not apply, because if there's nothing left, what am I really passing on, right? So this is really the difference in planning that I want to talk about tonight, because the idea is we should have assets. This should not be an if, it should not be a maybe. It's you followed the blueprint and you built, financial freedom and passive income. You have assets and you do have, whether it's kids or grandkids or churches or charities or corporations or causes that you want to put money towards. This is something you should be thinking about, right? So it's the act, meaning it's actually like estate planning is an action we actually take, not just an idea, okay, of preparing for the transfer of a person's wealth. So it's your wealth and assets after your death, right? So what does this look like? So an estate is going to be anything that falls into these categories. Real property, right? So if you have a house, that's part of your estate, right? If you have business interests, that's part of your estate. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, life insurance, cash, art, digital property, family photos. These are all things that are considered part of your estate, right? Now, it's important to understand this because your estate is looked at this way by the government and by the court system. So if you don't look at your estate this way, but they do, and they're the ones making the rules and calling the shots, your beneficiaries, your heirs, your kids, your grandkids are going to have a very hard time getting any of the stuff that you thought would automatically go to them because it's going to go through the court system. The court's going to say those photos are part of the family's estate, right? That bank account is part of the family's estate. That house is part of the family's estate. And we'll talk about what that means here tonight, right? So here's the facts. 80% of estates do not have proper planning. That means 8 out of 10 people do not have a proper estate plan, okay? So they don't have a plan to do one of 3 things or all 3 of these things: manage their assets, control their assets, and transfer their assets. Think about if you were building this up for your kids and grandkids to inherit, right? You have all of this wealth. You have gold and you have silver and you have real estate and private lending and life insurance and businesses, right? Who's going to manage those? And who's going to know how to manage them the way you did? If you think about it, you're right now like the CEO of your estate, the assets that you have, right? So with any company, if the CEO dies or leaves, there's going to be a new CEO. And the amount of direction and instruction and policy and information that the old CEO left for the new guy or the new gal, right? That's going to dictate how successful that company is. So if the old CEO leaves, little to no information, no policies on how things are done, no instruction, no write-up of how they did their job, then the new person coming in is guessing the entire time. So when it comes to things like, something that may seem as simple to you as how do I borrow from my sacred account and pay it back, your kids, grandkids, whoever it might be, they might not know how to do that. And so if you don't have that in there, that's part of controlling the assets. Sure, you might be passed on, but you can still control the assets. You can still dictate, how they should be used, when they can be used, who can use them, under what circumstances, what kind of events disqualify people, right? So people fail in those areas. They also fail to plan for taxes, right? Taxes, administrative costs, and legal fees. Okay, because here's what happens is if you don't have an estate plan, you go through something called probate court. Okay, probate court means when you die, the court system basically takes a inventory of all of your assets, and they freeze everything, and they say, hey, nobody can have this. We need to look at the will. We need to find out what the will says. If the will didn't say anything, then the state is going to dictate who gets what based on state law, right? So probate is the legal process of administering a deceased person's estate. It resolves all claims while distributing all the deceased person's property under a will. Probate can occur during life as well as upon death. So here's the deal. You pass away, you have a house, right? Let's say you have a house, you've got a car, you've got some bank accounts, you have some private lending deals, you have some gold, and your stuff is now going through probate. Now, in your mind, you're like, okay, I want my gold, let's say, to go to my daughter, and I want my house to go to my son, and I want the cash accounts to go to my church. That's all fine and dandy, but what's going to happen is if you didn't have that written in a will, then it's not what's going to happen. The state is going to have predetermined laws that basically dictate who gets what. Nothing your family says or does is going to be able to change what the state decides to do with your assets if you didn't have a will, right? Now, let's say you did have a will, because a lot of people think, oh, I have a will, I'm okay. A will does not avoid probate. Probate is the process of the court system then reading the will, looking at what it says, making sure it's valid, making sure it can be carried out, making sure that they can distribute all the claims against it. And that means that things like taxes and creditors and legal fees and all this other stuff is also going to get paid. And this process basically freezes the assets. Your son isn't going to get the house, usually for up to 18 months, 9 to 18 months on average is how long probate takes. Your church, they're not going to get your bank accounts. Your daughter is not going to get your gold for 9 to 18 months because that's how long it takes for this probate process to happen. Right now, if there's taxes involved and things where the government's getting money, then it's going to take even longer. But here's the reality. The average cost of probate usually is about 15% on average of the asset value. Meaning if you had $1 million in assets, on average, that's going to cost $150,000 in attorney fees and legal fees and administrative fees and taxes associated. This isn't even talking about the wealth tax, like the upper echelon. This is just saying for the average person. Okay, whether you're wealthy or not wealthy, you got 100 grand, it's going to cost 15,000 on average. You got $1 million, it's going to cost 150,000 on average, right? So think about that as like, okay, that's a definite cost. That's the average, meaning I should invest anything up to that dollar amount now to prevent that from happening, right? Now, the other factor is the time, right? So think about the time aspect of it. So 9 to 18 months go by, and your goal and your dream was for your kids to live on your assets and for them to be financially independent and for them to not have to trade time for money and for them to be able to follow all of the same principles you followed to get where you are. But for 9 to 18 months, they can't access any of it. Consider that. What are they going to have to do for that 9 to 18 months? They're going to have to go back into the rat race. They're going to have to go get the job, which you didn't want them to have to do. They're going to have to go trade time for money, which you didn't want them to have to do. They're probably getting rusty on the things you taught them because they have no assets to apply it to, right? So this idea of probate court, again, probate court happens if I have a will, but I don't have a full estate plan. Most people don't have a full estate plan. Some people have a will. You're still going to go through probate if you just have a will, okay? So probate, again, has fees. There's going to be fees involved with it, payment of utilities, taxes, mortgages, transfer delays, publication of your information. Check this one out. Your information goes public. When you go through probate, that is a public event, meaning all of your assets are now out in the open for everyone to see. This is great for the ambulance chaser lawsuit people that are like, hey, I want to try and get this person's money. What better way to go to the court records and find out who went through probate recently, where you can see all of their stuff, right? So you're no longer private. Like all the stuff you built up, all of the asset protection and the trusts and everything we talk about, gone out the window because we went through probate. It's also contestable, right? So let's say that you name someone in your will, to inherit something, right? And there's another person in your will that thinks that they should rightfully have it. They can contest the will. They can say, hey, Jerry wasn't of sound mind when he wrote it, or this is a mistake, or this can't be translated correctly, or it can't be distributed, or it's not valid. And so now another person, another party that you didn't intend to have those assets has them because they contested your will, right? So these are all things that can happen within the probate. And the idea of this is that, okay, well, you have assets, right? But the assets are frozen. So if it costs 15% of your estate value, but the assets are frozen, who's footing the bill for all of this? Because it's not you. Like, it's not you. Like, you have your kids and grandkids that can pay for this out of your estate. Your estate is on freeze. The life insurance is frozen, right? The cash accounts are frozen. The stocks are frozen. They can't use your assets for this. So if you have a $10 million estate and there's $1.5 million in probate costs, like, somebody's gonna have to figure it out. And it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be what you planned for. So the idea is, guys, be proactive. Like, think about the end first. The end being, okay, I want my kids and my grandkids to be financially independent, which means I need to safely transfer the assets to them, and then work your way backwards from there. Too many times we think about what's right here. I'm going to do this. Okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have this, and this is what next week and next month and next year looks like. And we start talking about even like 10, 15, 20 years out, and it's like no one's thought that far. We're saying even that's not far enough. You need to be thinking about the next 40 to 100 years. Okay, the next 40 to 100 years, when you die and your kids, grandkids, et cetera, get this money and these assets, what's it going to look like? Okay. So what are the options for probate? Number one, you can do nothing. That's always an option. You can say, I don't think I'm going to have any money. They can figure it out. I'm irresponsible, lazy, and I'm a bad parent or grandparent, and I'm not going to plan ahead. Okay. The other option is something called joint tenancy, which means I'm going to add someone else to the title of these items while I'm still living. And so when I die, they're a co-owner. And so it doesn't go through probate. There's problems. We'll talk about it with that in a second. We have then a will, right? A will is not actually going to handle the probate, as we just discussed. And then lastly, we have something called a living trust. Okay. The living trust is the actual real optimal solution here. We'll talk about what that looks like. Okay. So what if I do nothing, right? So if I do nothing, we're typically going to pay a lot in taxes, in court fees. The people that get the assets that we have might not be the people that we hoped or wanted to get the assets. And then we can also have still the probate proceedings, the timeframes involved with that. And then with kids and grandkids, like, we have no appointment of guardianship, right? Like, this is big. If you have minor kids and it's not in your will and in your estate plan, who's going to take care of them when you pass away? Like, that's like, somebody's going to have to, and the court's going to decide who it is. It might be logical where there's, the mom passes away and the dad's still there. Dad takes care of them. But what if you didn't want them to go to the dad because he's a bad person? Right. So these are all things like if you do nothing, sure, it feels good now because you're like, oh, I didn't have to spend the $2 or $3 grand to build an estate plan and I didn't have to worry about it. And, it was alleviating not to think about. But I want you to realize all of the things that you're leaving undone for your family to deal with. Right. And this is not just like them in their most logical state, being able to think for themselves and plan ahead and be proactive. Like they just lost you. They're upset. They're emotionally distraught. They're probably not thinking clearly. And now all of these big choices are put on their plate because I didn't, spend the $2 or $3 grand and a couple of hours to do this when I could have. Right. Because I was looking for the shortcut and the easy way. So joint tenancy was the other option, right? So joint tenancy is often deemed by law as 100% owner. So joint tenancy means there's also a joint liability. Like if I have a property, let's say a piece of real estate, and I go joint tenancy, it means we're both on the title, right? Which means while I'm living, I'm not the full owner of it. You are too, because you're on the title with me. When I pass away, sure, it's going to go to you because you're the joint tenant of it, right? But that also means that you and I share the liability, right? We share ownership, we share control, we share any agreements. If I want to buy another property or borrow against it or sell this one, I have to check with you now, right? So this is a way people will use to try and shortcut having to do an estate plan because they'll be like, oh, I'll just put my wife on everything, which is normal. You should, like, if that's how you guys do things in your marriage. But like that can also cause problems as far as, okay, well, I need to conveniently sell this or do this or that, or I want to keep the liability in just my person, or I want to put it maybe in an LLC. Like now it's confused because the joint tenancy interferes, right? Or if it's not my husband or my wife, I just say I'm going to put my brother on it because I don't want to do an estate plan and I want to avoid probate. Okay, well, do I really want my brother to be in charge of everything? Okay, do I really want to go have to ask my brother for permission to get a home equity line of credit against my house? Do I really want to ask my brother for the ability to sell something that's rightfully mine? Because that's what it turns into, right? And then the other thing is when I do pass away, my brother now is the one that owns all of it. Hopefully he does the right thing. Hopefully he's a good guy and he's like, okay, I'm not going to just keep all this. I'm going to distribute it the way Jerry would have seen fit. I don't know. And that's the point of don't do joint tenancy. Just do the living trust. Okay. And then the last will and testament. It is a statement in its direction, as this says. Right. So it's a statement of my wishes. It's direction of what should happen, but it is not a legally binding contract. Okay. Which means it can be contested. It's not written in stone. That's why the probate process happens. They're validating the will. Okay. If it was a contract, like, okay, like we don't have to validate anything. It's a contract. Whatever the contract says, we carry it out. And this is not, it's just a statement. It's just direction. Okay. So probate is still necessary. So the disadvantages of a will. Okay, in a will, you can still have conservatorship. This is what happened with the whole Free Britney thing. If you want that to happen to your kids or your grandkids or whoever would be inheriting your assets, by all means, just do a will. With a will, all of the assets are frozen immediately. They cannot be accessed, right? Control is lost. It's all subject to judiciaries, meaning the judges now are the ones in control of everything until the will is settled and distributed. They can't do partial distributions of assets. Right? Meaning it's all going to go to one person at the time it's supposed to. Like, let's say you had a big pool of cash and your idea was, okay, I want to distribute, 10% of this a year, every year to my kids, as long as they're doing X, Y, and Z, as long as they're not doing drugs, as long as they're sober, and as long as they have a job, right? I can't do that with a will. With a will, let's say it's $5 million. If I put them as the beneficiary or the one inheriting it, boom, they're going to get $5 million. No holds barred. They can do with it whatever they please because the will can't control it once it's given to them. Okay. And then the will also does not optimize estate tax savings. A will is not a tax vehicle, right? You can't do tax planning in a will. It's, again, just direction and a statement of my wishes. Okay. And then a will has a very high probability of being contested, meaning, again, someone can go in and contest it and they can say, hey, I don't think this was right. I don't think this person should get that. I don't think Jerry was of sound mind. And then it also has the expense and time delays of probate. So a will is good, but it's not optimal and it's not ideal, right? So will equals probate, which, as we talked about, there's fees involved, and then a smaller percent of your estate goes to the family. And so you want to prevent that, obviously, that time frame and that cost. Whereas with the revocable living trust, there's no court fees. Okay. So guys, what a trust actually is, and this gives the example of an estate, but a trust is literally an entity. Okay, it's another entity. And so while I'm living, I assign ownership of all of my assets to the trust, right? I still control it. I still manage it. It's not like I'm giving it up. I can still actually like live in the house if it's my house. I can still manage the investments if they're my investments. I can still borrow against the assets if they're my assets, right? But what happens is when I die, my death happens. The court looks at my stuff and like Jerry didn't own anything, okay? Because the trust owned it all. Because the trust is the owner, none of it has to go through probate. The trust didn't die, right? And so the probate gets avoided because when they look at my assets, none of it was mine. It was all my trust. My trust didn't die. I've written in my trust on the trust document and procedures on how to distribute them, who gets them, under what circumstances, what kind of events are disqualifying, what the distribution schedules look like, who's going to manage it, who's going to be my trustee or my CEO of my trust, and what their job looks like and what their compensation looks like. And so it literally turns into a business, right? And so this can start being distributed and handled the way that I would have done it if I was still alive. And it avoids probate, right? So here I use the example of a safe. A trust is kind of like a safe. So it can hold all of your assets. It can also be a recipient to assets. So it can be like I have a checking account, let's say, and I want to assign ownership to the checking account. So the trust now owns it. And that would be an example of assigning ownership, right? It could also be the trust is the beneficiary of my life insurance policy, right? Where the trust might not own my life insurance policy. I might own it while I'm alive, right? But when I die, the assets pay out to the trust. Now, why would I do that? Let's say I have a $10 million death benefit, and I know that that $10 million can either help my family a great deal or it can harm them a great deal. And I want them to invest it a certain way, and I want them to make sure they're following the blueprints, and I want to make sure they don't do certain things with that money. Right? Well, if I don't leave the life insurance beneficiary as the trust, it's going to pay out directly to them as beneficiary, and I have no control over what they do with it. Okay, but if I assign it to the trust, the life insurance pays into the trust. The trust provisions say how it can be invested, who manages it, what the rules are, all of the things I just mentioned. And now for them to get any of that money, it has to be done according to the trust, right? Otherwise, it stays. It doesn't get distributed to them. Right? So I can do that as an owner of the trust, being an owner or the beneficiary. I can also put, the wishes that I have, inside of it. Like I've heard of clients, putting in their provisions like, hey, my kids, for example, for them to inherit money, they have to work, and for every dollar they earn, I will match it. Right? Every dollar they earn, I'll match it. And so then it gives incentive to their kids to produce, to grow their incomes. Otherwise, they don't get any of the money. Right? So they're looking at how can I increase my income as high as I possibly can. Great incentive so that I can get the trust distributions. Right? You could also say, hey, the trust doesn't get distributed unless the heirs of the trust have a sacred account and they're putting X amount per month or an X percentage away into it. Right? You can actually do this stuff. Like you can be as specific as you want to because it's your trust. Okay. At death, your trustee will open the safe door and distribute your assets privately and directly to your beneficiaries. Privately is big. A trust is not a federal document. It's not something that goes on a public registry. It's not like probate where now everyone can see your stuff, right? Like a trust is literally, it's a contract. It's a document. It turns into its own entity. The trustee or the CEO of the trust, when you die, they execute the trust directly to the beneficiary, and that's it. No one knows about it. There's no courts involved. There's no public record involved. Like you maintain discretion. Okay. So it avoids a lot of the stuff the will doesn't cover. Now, there's three parties to a trust. Okay, the first one is the actual trustee, right? So this is the person that's putting it together. This may also be known as the grantor. We also have what's known as the settler. Okay, so when the trustee passes away, the settler becomes the trustee, and they settle the trust. They distribute the assets. Then we have the beneficiary, those receiving it, right? So those are going to be the kids, the grandkids, the spouses, the siblings, the churches, the charities, the foundations, whatever it might be. Right? So those are the three parties that are involved. Okay. So party one is the creator. This is you. Okay. So the creator is also known as the grantor. Let me shrink my head here. The grantor, settler, and the trustor. So they're the one actually putting it together. When you establish a living trust, you become the creator or the grantor. Like that's automatically given to you as a title when you put the trust together. If you're married, you and your spouse can be creators or grantors of the trusts, or you can make separate trusts depending on how your household assets are split up. And then only you, the creator, can make stipulations and changes to the trust. So while you're living, like, this is the great thing with a trust. While you're living, you have complete customization and flexibility whenever you want on what that trust says, what the provisions are, who is in it, who's not in it, and you can change that as much as you want. So that's called a revocable trust. When you die, it switches from revocable to irrevocable, meaning whatever that trust document said the day you passed away is locked in forever. Okay, it cannot be changed, it cannot be altered, it's irrevocable. And so it's really, again, like something you want to pay attention to. This isn't, I have my will and I haven't updated it in 5 or 10 years, and I might have a trust, but I don't really know how it works. And the people that we set it up with, they never answered the phone when we call. Like, no, this is a living, breathing document. Every time you own an asset or you add an asset, it needs to get added to your trust and provisions need to be assigned to it. If you have kids, add them to the family. They need to get added to the trust. Provisions need to be assigned to them, right? You have anything that changes significantly or substantially in your family and your assets and your financial life, it all needs to get updated into the trust. So this is not like a once every 5-year thing or even a once a year thing. Sure, you can have a routine timeline, but what I'm saying is this is a living, breathing document. Anytime a change happens, you should be going in and updating this. Okay, party 2 is the trustee. The trustee is the person or corporate entity that is chosen to manage the assets in your trust. So this can be anyone, including the creator. So while you're alive, you can be your trustee, right? So you're not saying like, Britney Spears scenario, it's my trust, my assets, but so-and-so is managing it. I don't have a say. That's not what it is at all. That's called conservatorship. We're not doing conservatorship. We're saying when you establish the trust as the grantor, as the creator, you also can be the trustee. And that's why you're able to manage the assets, grow the investments, borrow against the life insurance, do the gold loans, do whatever you want to do with inside that trust and not have to give up control. I think a lot of people have this myth that if I set up a trust, I lose control. That's not at all the case, right? So you do want to name a trustee so that when you pass away, that's the person that's now in control. And I very much look at this as like naming a CEO for your company. Okay. And here's the problem is a lot of people will look at this and they will name the easiest person they can think of. I'm going to name my mom. Okay. If you're in your 30s and your mom's in your 60s, what's the chance that she's still going to be alive when you die? Probably not a good idea to name your mom, right? Or, I'm just going to name my siblings. Okay. This is not like a volunteer, like you run at the food bank for the weekend and you're done. No, this is the management of a business. Is your brother-in-law and your sister really the best bet? Not saying they're not, but I'm saying think about this like a business owner. You shouldn't run it like a mom and pop shop. You should be looking at, okay, number one, who do I trust the most and who's the most capable? Whether that's a person or a group. If it's a person, great. I'm going to have them be my trustee. That's the conversation I'm going to interview them for. There's going to be an interview process and I'm going to decide whether or not I hire this person. It's not, oh, we're going to name Sue because she loves the kids and she's so nice. Sue might be terrible at money. Sue might be on the show Sick Addiction where she spends all your money on laundry detergent. So she eats secretly at nighttime. You don't know what Sue does behind closed doors. So you want to interview and figure this out ahead of time. It could be a group where you set up an LLC and you have several people inside the LLC as members and the LLC manages the trust. That way, if one of them passes away, you have 3 or 4 other people that are still able to keep checks and balances in place. Right. So this is something that's very intentional and thought out. It's not whims or naming family members and not telling them so that surprise, you pass away and all of a sudden they figure out they're your trustee. You don't want to play that way. Okay. So this is very often the successor trustee is a trusted family member, such as a son or a daughter. You could name the kids, right? If they're old enough, if they're over 18 by the time you pass away, it could be them. And that's very often, a good way to go if you have a group of them or 1 or 2 of them. But the thing you do want to look out for there is, again, like maybe not all of them are fit to manage it. And so you want to really, again, interview it based on who's the right fit, not just are they in my family? Are they my kid? Are they my friend? It's, I'm naming my CEO, right? If you're married, you and your wife can be co-trustees. This way, if either you become incapacitated or dies, the other instantly becomes sole trustee as written in the trust document. This can be a great way to go as well. So again, bottom line is the trustee is not a incidental selection. It's not, based on anything other than statistics. Who is going to do the best job in this role? Okay. And this is, again, your CEO for your assets and for your legacy. The third party is the beneficiary. So these are the people that are going to receive the assets when you die. And again, guys, with beneficiaries, like you have to think about this from the standpoint of what is going to do the greatest amount of good for them. On paper, it sounds really nice to say, hey, let's give everyone a bunch of money and let's share it equally and everyone should get the same amount. And that might be the case, but let's say, for example, I have a client, several years back where one of the beneficiaries had a severe drug addiction. And so we didn't give that kid money, because we knew he was going to go spend it on heroin. So we had to look at it from a standpoint of not what's fair and what feels good, but we had to look at it from a standpoint of each of these beneficiaries as an individual and what is the most helpful for them in their lives. What is going to do the greatest amount of good for them? And it might not be giving them $5 million. Okay, it might be several stipulations that's totally different than their sister or their brother that might not seem fair in the moment, but it's better for them. Because if I give this person all of this responsibility and all of this firepower, it might destroy their lives. Okay, think about when you were 18, 19, 21 years old, you were in college. What were you doing? Were you partying? Were you doing drugs? Were you building a business? Whatever it was, would that have helped you at that time? Some of us can't say yes to that. We'd be like, no, dude, I would have blown all of the money. It would have been a terrible idea for me. So this is another thing where, again, we tend to either not do this process at all, or if we do it, we just blanket statement, oh, give everyone a third, a third, a third, and split it evenly. And let's be fair to everyone. And let's name, our sister as the trustee when we pass away, because that feels nice. And we're thinking about this from the wrong standpoint. We need to think about this as a business, and we need to think about it as longevity. Okay. Because this trust can last hundreds of years. There's something called the Dynasty Trust. Okay. We can set this thing up to last, I believe, is 365 years. Okay. That's 365 years. The average lifespan is what, 75, 80 years old. So if it's 365 years at 80 years old, average lifespan, that's 4 to 5 generations of family. Okay. 4 to 5 generations of family. But if we do this wrong, it won't even last one generation. Okay, think about this. The other thing that's important and wise is you should put a stipulation in the trust that the beneficiaries all have to get life insurance on them, and they all have to name the trust as the beneficiary of the life insurance. This keeps the trust going, right? Because what happens if I have, let's say, $20 million in my trust and my kids and my grandkids and everyone who's living off of it, it's depleting itself, right? But if I put life insurance on them and I make it a stipulation to say you cannot withdraw money unless you have life insurance on you, and the beneficiary of the life insurance has to be the trust. What happens? They pull money out. They pull out, let's say $2 or $3 million in their lifetime. That's what they live on. They pass away. Boom, the life insurance pays out. Right? The life insurance pays out. Now all of a sudden, the trust gets refunded and reimbursed. Right? So this is a big deal. There's strategy involved in this that, again, most of us don't consider when we put this together. So why do we want a living trust? Again, it avoids probate. Okay, there's no court intervention. There's no title being taken over. It's something that you have full control over. The creator can design and mandate the different, provisions and mandates and set, basically the rules within this trust. The protection can be in place for your heirs. So again, so you can basically set this up to where it can't be contested. So let's say your heirs are going in and they're saying, hey, I'm supposed to get 10%, but I want to try and argue and get more. Right. And they try and contest it. If you set this up right, that can't happen. Right. Otherwise, if it could happen, they can pull more money out of it and they can just deplete this thing much faster than you intended. And that can affect, the next generation or the next 2 or the next 3 generations down the line. Financial information handled is completely private. We discussed that. It prevents from disinheriting your children from previous marriages. So if you have kids from previous marriages, let's say you were married more than once, you can make sure they're all included rather than saying, hey, my kids are included, but it doesn't, include the previous marriage, or maybe that gets contested, right? And then you can have an intra-family legal agreement where the family makes the decision. So again, it can be, a team thing based on the provisions of the trust rather than just the court system or rather than just one person. So what do you need when you set this up? So the first component of this is you want to have an electronic advanced medical directive. So part of this is, again, the medical directive of what happens to you if you are medically incapacitated, right? Because before you die, there's going to be the final stages of life. Do I want to be put on life support? Do I want to be put in a nursing home? Do I want to be in a position where I'm put in a psych ward maybe? That was something that happened with my mom where the doctors mixed up a bunch of her medication and she was acting batshit crazy for about a week. They almost put her in a mental hospital. And the only reason they didn't is because I think my sister had the medical directive and she said no. But they were on the way to send her into a psychiatric clinic within, the next couple of hours if a decision wasn't made. If you don't have a medical directive, those are things that can happen. Decisions could be made against your will that you didn't want to have happen, or decisions can't be made that would have been your will because they can't make a move on it because they don't have authorization. So this is part of it, is the advanced medical directive. Then we have the dynamic revocable living trust component. That's the actual trust. Then we have the last will and testament. Again, we still have the guidance, the direction. We have guardianship appointment of the children and any minors. We have electronic signature and implementation. This one is super important and very convenient, okay? The electronic signature and implementation means that we can do all of this paperless, right? Like we don't have to go to an office. Let's say your trust, had to be settled during COVID. Actually know someone where this happened. COVID happens, they can't travel. The lawyer's office is closed. The court's not seeing people. And now all of a sudden the entire thing has been put on hold and your trust can't be settled, right? But if you have electronic signature and implementation, the electronic signatures can be implemented, the settlement can happen electronically, and all of it can be done digitally without any stops, right? Like that's becoming more and more important and is different because, the last 15, 20 years, 30 years, longer than this, it's been brick and mortar. We go to the office, we meet with the crusty old lawyer, he writes the trust up, and then if we need something, we schedule an appointment and meet with them again. And it's this long process. And I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be that way. The entire thing can be done electronically. Okay, and then we like to actually put our trusts in Nevada, right? So you want to look at the states that you're putting the trust in. What is the situs of the trust? That's what that's called. We use Nevada because they have exceptional asset protection laws. They have exceptional tax laws, and they also have exceptional electronic signature and implementation laws, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about why Nevada in just a minute, but that's a big part of it is what is the state? A lot of people, they just cite us in the state that they're in. They're like, hey, I'm in New York, I'm in California, I'm in Montana, I live wherever, and I'm going to put the trust in that state because they don't know they can do another state, right? I'm in Florida, my trust is in Nevada, it's not in Florida. So again, the core document is the revocable living trust, okay? So this is the part that's going to take the most time. And so when you set this up with our firm, we actually have a network attorney. Her name is attorney Ciara Lister. And so you'll do a one-on-one with her and she'll actually talk you through the entire thing. She'll figure out, what are all of the assets that you own? Who do you want them to go to? Under what circumstances? Are there provisions you want built in? And she'll build through the entire trust document with you so that this is taken care of first, right? And if you do this correctly, again, you can have cost savings and administrative efficiencies built into it so that it's not something that is expensive. It's not something that's clunky, and it's something that financially makes sense for you. The last will and testament. So this says, should you not place all of the assets in the trust? So let's say you have some assets you don't want to put in the trust. Then the last will basically handle the rest of those. Let's say you have 90% of it in the trust. The other 10% is covered by the will. You very well could put 100% of it in the trust. So it's up to you, and that's a conversation you would have with the attorney. The will directs that any assets that are in your name when you die are transferred into the trust. The other aspect is you might have some assets that you own and you didn't have time to add them to the trust yet. And so, because of that, they end up by happenstance being in the will. So the will is sometimes still needed. The will also states your choice of guardian or any appropriate beneficiary. So the will is typically going to handle guardianship of the kids. You should also have durable powers of attorney. So you can select the person to act on your behalf to make decisions if you become incapacitated. This can be healthcare, financial. Like think about it. When you're in hospice, you're probably not paying your mortgage, right? You're probably not making your car payment. You're probably not funneling the money back into the life insurance like you had been when you were healthy and living. And so a durable power of attorney elects the right person. This might very well be the person that's also going to be your trustee, and they would take care of these things for you. Okay. Healthcare directives, we talked about that. Special directive apps. These provide common choices concerning trust administration, dispositive language, who gets what, and then also will auto-populate into the trust document. So this is all done for us on an app. When you fill the trust out, you fill out the field in the app and boom, it pops it into the actual trust document. Because the thing is there's a certain amount of a trust that's a boilerplate, meaning it's just form. It's a template. Okay, all trusts are going to read a certain way. All trusts are going to have certain items in it that are just kind of lawyer speak. And it's really what is the custom stuff that I want to be built in. So you don't have to draft all of the boilerplate. You can just fill in the field and then boom, the important stuff will get populated in. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to talk about the Nevada part for a second. And I know this is quite a bit, like this is maybe even information overload, but I want to make sure we do get through this portion of it. So let me share my screen again. Okay. So again, our trusts are always in Nevada. So point number one, unless otherwise stated, our estate plans are always going to be situs in Nevada. Okay. And it doesn't matter where you live. You can be in Alaska, you can be in Florida, you can be in California, you can be in New York. Your trust is in Nevada. The implementation, including the execution and full assignment of assets, these are all done through electronic signature because of Nevada law. So you're able to do a lot of this again electronically due to the fact that the trust is in Nevada. This also puts a trust protector and investment advisor in place. So you might name your trustee. Let's say you pick your CEO, but you're like, hey, we want Wealth Dynamics to be protector and advisor for the trust. It builds that into the document that the advisor to the trust is legally appointed and statutorily enforced, meaning the trustee would always have to go through us first before they can do investments, before they can do anything, involving moving assets, managing assets. They would have to run it by Wealth Dynamics first, or whoever your advisor would be, right? So we can actually put that into the trust. We can also put in the Nevada Dynasty Trust feature. This is multi-generational holding trust. Again, this can be set up to be a 365-year in length trust, right? So this means that your trust would be in force and in effect for 365 years. Otherwise, it dissolves, right? When it dissolves, all of the assets have to be distributed at that point. So this is saying, well, it's going to dissolve in 365 years. We just did the math on that. That's 5 generations after you, right? This is why you see like the Rockefeller Trust, they have, hundreds and hundreds of family members still living on it when Rockefeller was alive in like the early 1900s, right? Like that's probably 2 generations so far. If they have Dynasty set up, they probably have another 2 or 3 generations in it, right? And then you can set up more and you can have that continue onward, but that's an important feature and that happens in Nevada. Durable power of attorney over assets. This can be implemented and established under Nevada law, even if the citizen is not a citizen of Nevada, right? So this is important because again, like some of these trusts, depending on where you set them up, are going to limit you to the state that you're in. With Nevada, they give us flexibility to elect people that are not Nevada citizens for that. Nevada also recognizes the highest levels of spendthrift trust protection available among 50 states. So this basically makes it a pro-trust environment. It says it serves the primary purpose of carrying out the intentions of the grantor in the event of a legal controversy. Okay, so basically, if there's like a contesting or somebody is trying to dispute the trust, they're going to go back to what was the spirit of the grantor when he wrote the trust, what was his intention, and they're going to go with that as the default rather than getting into a legal battle with whoever it is that's trying to dispute the trust. Okay, because that can be expensive, time consuming, and just, a distraction. Okay, so Nevada says, nope, whatever the trust said is what we're going to go with. If we're in doubt, we're going to look at the overall intention and agreement of the trust creator or grantor, and that's what we're going to go with. Okay, and then finally, Nevada is a 0 income and 0 capital gains state, meaning if there's a taxable event inside your trust, in Nevada, you don't have to pay state taxes on that. Right? Other states, like they have their own thing, their own deal. Like that can be something that you do have to pay taxes on, and that can be unexpected. So Nevada gives you that protection as well. Okay. So what I want to do is we went through a lot here. So what I would like to do is I want to open this up for some questions. I know we went through a lot of information. This might have been gibberish for some of you. I tried to make this as simple as I possibly could and still fit it in within a reasonable time frame. But I want to open this up for questions on Facebook, on Zoom as well. And on Zoom, again, we'll go live with your questions. So we'll mic up and we'll answer those. Let me just refresh our Facebook and see what questions we have here first. And we will get to the Zoom questions. So questions you have on anything we covered tonight, keep it relevant. Implementation, setup, when do you need it? Why do you need it? How do you do one? Sean, good to see you. Justin, good to see you. Glad, good to see you. Jazwan, good to see you. Okay, Jonathan Sayre asks, when is a good time to create a trust? So Jonathan, we do this on Blueprint Phase 2B, right? So, and I'll share that really quick so you guys can see this. That's an excellent question, is when do we put this together? Let me find it here really quick. Here we go. So this is again on Blueprint Phase 2B. So 2B is right here, estate and legal protection. So this is your last will and testament, living will, healthcare directive, Nevada trust. This happens after you are financially literate, right? This happens after you have handled your debt. This happens after you have gotten credit worthy. This happens after you've built up your reserves. You actually have assets to give to people at this point. And then you're starting to build up gold here. And the reason why we insert it here is at this point afterwards, you're going to start adding a lot of assets. You're going to have mortgages. You're going to have, more gold. You're going to have private lending deals. And so we want to set the trust up strategically so that it exists prior to you doing all this investing, so that every time you invest, you can just title it into the trust. One of the pain in the asses on a trust is if you own a bunch of assets before you set it up, you actually have to go back and change all of it, right? All of the beneficiaries, all of the titling, like you have to go to the title company and change that. That might be, weeks worth of paperwork and administrative stuff that you've got to go through to do that. So it's important to have it set up before you really start loading down on assets. Vlad asks, will this be recorded in the training portal? Yes, this will be. This will be inside of Wealth Dynamics University. We will also put this on my YouTube channel for replay. Todd, good to see you. Sean says, never would have thought about putting a trust in Nevada. I knew they had excellent corporate veils for LLCs. Great info. Sean asked, what does boilerplate mean? So Sean, boilerplate basically means it's a template, right? Like the body of a trust, especially like the legal headings and stuff, it's always going to be the same. If you've ever read a contract where all of the contracts kind of start out the same way and they all sound very similar, that's boilerplate. It's basically a template. And then the important stuff that's changeable or customizable, that's the custom stuff that we would put in through the app. And so the trust, like the main document, that might all be very similar from one trust to the other, but the specifics and the pertinence of what's going to happen, that's all custom. Justin asked, a Nevada trust helps avoid state taxes, but not federal, correct? So yes, that's correct, Justin. So a Nevada trust will still have federal taxes, guys. And it's also really important to understand the difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust. We're talking about a revocable trust. From a federal tax standpoint, a revocable trust is looked at no different than like a sole proprietorship. So any assets that you own, any income that you have, that's going to end up on your personal tax return, no different than if you owned an LLC that's taxed as a sole proprietorship. So you still have federal tax. Some people, they watch too many YouTube videos and like, oh, I'm going to set up this, super duper trust from whatever state, from whatever firm. And it turns out to be an irrevocable trust. Okay, an irrevocable trust has its own tax rate. And I believe the tax rate on an irrevocable trust is close to like 40%. Right. And so people don't know this and they'll set it up because they watch too many snazzy YouTube videos on trust and asset protection. And then it comes time of paying taxes, excuse me. It comes time to pay taxes. And all of a sudden they have this giant tax bill because they didn't understand that setting up an irrevocable trust is different than a revocable trust. Very good question. Josiah asks, does my name have to be in the trust name? Can I keep it cryptic when I have property titles associated with it? Your name doesn't have to be in it. You can call it whatever you want to call it. So if you're more focused on legacy, like you definitely could put the family name on it. If you're more focused on privacy, you don't have to. You can put your own titling however you'd like to. Just one asks, how long does it take to set up the legacy trust, and what is the average cost per month or year associated on asset holdings? So just one, your question is part number one, how long does it take to set up? That usually can be done within a couple of days. Really, you do an initial consultation with our attorney. They put it together, they build it out, and then there might be clarifying, meetings and questions afterwards, but it doesn't take too long to build. Usually you're going to look at about $2 to $3 grand to set one up. I think our annual fee is like $95 per year. So it's very inexpensive. And with that, you get your attorney on retainer. Anytime you need to edit something and make changes, you can log into the portal and make changes, or you can email our network attorney and she'll be able to direct you as well. Andre asks, when editing the trust in the future, are lawyers still available to ensure the updates you want to add are proper and in order with what is included with the fee? Yep, exactly. So Andre actually is a client of ours with trust. And so with that, you get attorney lister. So if you want to add stuff, you can be like, hey, Ciara, what is this? Is this correct? Can you look at it? Can you maybe help me with it? And she'll be able to do that within reason with no extra fees. If it's something that's like way outside of left field, she'll still help, but she might charge an hourly rate for that. Great. Just one put a definition of boilerplate. So boilerplate refers to standardized text, copy, documents, method, or procedures that may be used over again without making major changes to the original. In the field of contract law, documents contain boilerplate language, which is a language that is considered generic or standard in contracts. Awesome. Thank you for posting that, just one. Okay, good. So we're all tracking so far with Facebook. Let me go to Zoom now. We've got quite a few questions on Zoom. So again, if we're on Zoom, we can go live and we can mic up and chat about this together. Okay, so we have a question here from Mark Perry. Let me add Mark in. All right, question from Mark here tonight. Hey, Mark, how are you tonight?
Hey, Jerry, great topic. I'm doing fine.
Awesome. Thank you. What is your question?
Yeah, Jerry, I was wondering if it's an appropriate situation to have a trustee also be the beneficiary. And if so, does that trustee, do they have, he or she, the fiduciary responsibility to the other beneficiaries and to the trust itself to, perform the duties and implement whatever the trust says?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the answer to that is yes, you can have a trustee also be a beneficiary, and the trustee does have fiduciary responsibility to the trust. And the great thing about that is the other beneficiaries, you can have them be provided with copies of the trust. So if you want to have accountability there, like, let's say you have 4 kids and you're naming one of them as one of them as the trustee, but all 4 of them are beneficiary. The concern would be, does the one kid rip the other 3 off? With a trust, that's really not possible because the trustee has to distribute according to the trust document. So as long as there's some sort of accountability where the other kids know what the trust document says and there's some oversight, it's really hard to have that happen. So that's a good question, and that's also a very valid concern.
Can I add a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, with that being said, what if it's a very complicated trust with a lot of moving parts? Can the trustee be monetarily compensated for implementing and his time and effort? After the person passes away, can he be compensated by the trust in a fair way? And who determines who that fair compensation is?
Yeah, that's a very good question too. Mark is dropping bombs with the questions tonight. So the compensation, I think that is very fair. I think the thing to look at is if the trustee is the beneficiary, how much in addition to what they're already going to get from the trust, how much in addition do you compensate them? If they're not a beneficiary, then I think it's very fair to give them, a salary, maybe even a incentive for growing the assets. And so that's something that if you want to put in the trust, you'd actually write that into the trust while you're living, and you would create, a basis of, the established pay, any future increases, whether there's fixed compensation, variable compensation. You might even put in there like an escrow company that handles that compensation so that the trustee is having another intermediary involved in their own compensation. So those are all things you could build in. And I would highly recommend and suggest that. I don't think anyone does anything for free. And again, as I said earlier, I'm really against, just saying, hey, I'm gonna have my sister do it, right? Like, you want to have the best quality person doing this. And you want to make sure that if there is a substantial amount of intelligence or ability or know-how required, that you are compensating that, because it is a big deal and it's a big task that they're undertaking for you and your family. All right, I'm going to bring Nano on live for our next question. Nano, go ahead and unmute with your question here.
Hey, Jerry, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for asking. I have quite a few questions here. So does it matter? Do you want me to give all to you once or go one at a time?
Let's just go one at a time.
Okay, so let's go with the first one. Let me pull it up here. Okay, good. Is the trust updated from time to time if one is increasing his assets or selling them?
Yes, exactly. So if you're changing, like adding assets, selling assets, adding family members even, or even, you know, businesses or whatever it would be, you'd want to update the trust.
Okay, great. And is that like done once a year? You know, how often is that supposed to be done?
So it's very situational. I would say at least once a year as just like an interval, but really anytime you buy an asset, sell an asset, or make like a significant change like that, that should be like a triggering event where you would update it then, regardless of whether it's been a year or not.
Got it. So it's kind of like if you have a major event going on that needs to be updated, that's the time.
Exactly.
Perfect. The other question is, would Wealth Dynamics be the CEO of the trust as an option for the trustee to be approved in order to enjoy the benefits of the assets?
No. So typically, like Wealth Dynamics would not be the trustee. We're not trust settlers. We do have vendors that can do that. So if somebody wants to name one of our partners as a trustee where they want to have a third party management company, they can. But I highly suggest them keeping that in, you know, the family or within their group of friends or whoever they trust. You know, if they don't trust anyone, which is not a good thing, you know, there certainly are options, but we would be like the trusted advisor or the investment advisor for the trust, but there would still be a trustee other than us, you know, doing that.
Okay, so you would be the advisor for the person managing the trust that would have to go through Wealth Dynamics in order to distribute the what's inside the trust.
Not to distribute it. We would be more involved from like an investment standpoint. So let's say the trust owns assets and those assets are producing income, and a certain amount of that income is now accumulated and there's enough money to invest. Before the trustee could invest, the grantor could say, hey, the trustee has to go talk to Wealth Dynamics first and get consult on where we should put the funds.
Perfect. Another question is, what happens when the 365 years is up for the Dynasty Trust at that point in order to keep the assets being sheltered and protected?
Yeah. So at that point, one of two things is going to happen. Number one, the assets all would need to be distributed by that time. Number two, you could set up another trust. Again, it would be a new grantor and it would be a new trust, but you could, you know, transfer it from that to the other one or have the beneficiaries agree to transfer into the other one. So there are ways to keep it going through the establishment of an additional trust.
But at that point in time, 5 generations later, it would be whoever's alive at that point to do that.
Yeah. And again, like 1776, are there five? I don't even know if we've been around 5 generations as a country. So it's up in the air whether that's even recognized at that point in time. Like hopefully it is, right?
Okay.
But anything could change in 365 years.
It's true, it could change in a year. But
For
yes.
sure.
Okay, got it. And why would you use a will in a trust and not just a trust, since a will is gonna go through probate?
Yeah, so that could be if there are things that for some reason the grantor doesn't want to put in the trust or maybe overlooked or didn't have time to add. And that's where you would have that will coming in and handling anything that wasn't in the trust. It's really not a good plan to say, hey, I want to put it in the will instead of the trust, but it's more like a safety net. Like if for some reason something didn't get in the trust or was overlooked or missed, the will can kind of be the catch-all underneath of it. So at least you can have the guidance and direction on where it should go.
Perfect. But if you have a trust, do you need a will?
You still want to have both just in case. Again, that will is like a safety net. So just in case anything gets missed with the trust or not put in, that will is there to catch it.
Perfect. And my last question is, and this is, you know, based on a person's own viewpoint, right? If a person believes that eventually he'll come back in another lifetime, is there such a thing where he's going to be able to take the trust over again?
Oh, you mean like people? So if people believe in like reincarnation, so not really. Like depending on who or what that person were to reincarnate as, they're not going to be their own family member or themselves. So the trust is really going to be the grantor who's dead, right? So that person is, you know, no longer in the picture. The trustee who's alive and managing it, and then the beneficiaries that are inheriting it. And so those people aren't going to ever change. That's always going to be who that is. So to answer your question, probably not. Like there definitely would have to be, you know, like a similarity in like bloodline or genetics where you end up being a kid or a grandkid of the person that passed away in order to get back in there.
Okay, perfect. And is it also possible for example, for as part of the trust for you to request individuals to have a certain level, let's say to do a course, or let's say they go through the financial education or something to that degree or the equivalent in order for them to reap the benefits or what's inside the trust. Is that such a thing?
Absolutely. And I would highly encourage that. I would put in there that, there's an education requirement, there's a financial solvency requirement, and really however strict you want to be with it. That's the beautiful thing about a trust is it's your trust. So you can make it as hardcore as you want to, and there's no rules against it. You can say, hey, you have to be able to do 4 backflips on a Tuesday when it's sunny before you can take the money out. And if that's what it says, that's what it says.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
Awesome. Good questions. All right, I think we have more questions here. We have a question here from Nilufar. Let me see if she has a microphone or not tonight. I don't think she does. So I'll answer Nilufar's question here. She says, when is the best time? And I think we covered this actually, the best time to do estate planning, even if you don't have much an assets yet. So again, that's going to be blueprint phase 2B. And the idea and the right time to do it is when you don't have a bunch of assets yet, just because it's a very big pain to go back and retitle all of the assets. Nilufar asks, how does the trustee get paid? We kind of covered this with Mark's question. You can actually build that into your trust. You can have salary, you can have fee-based compensation, consulting-based compensation, bonuses. There's a lot of different ways to do it. You would consult with your attorney on it or with our attorney on it if you're setting it up with us. And so we'd be able to help kind of direct through the attorney. And again, guys, I want to clarify, I'm not an attorney. So do not go set up your trust and be like, well, Jerry recommends, talk to an attorney, talk to our attorney, and the attorney will help you with the actual implementation. This is just for educational purposes here tonight. We talked with Nano on his questions. It looks like Tamara has a question. Let me go ahead and bring her on live here. Hey, Tamara, how are you tonight?
I'm wonderful. How are you guys doing tonight? Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
All
so
right,
you have
I ran.
a couple of questions.
Yes, I had to run into the garage. Sorry if there's an echo.
Oh, no worries. So what is your question?
Well, is there a requirement to have any type of ownership in the state of Nevada to be able to set up a trust in there? Do I need to have a home or anything or business, anything set up in Nevada?
Nope. So you do not have to have any assets in Nevada to set up a trust there.
Okay. So, and is there, I guess, additional taxes with that for the beneficiaries? Like, I don't know how Nevada works between Texas and Nevada, or is there any drawbacks, I guess?
No, so that's the great part with Nevada. They don't have state taxes on income or capital gains. So if you have beneficiaries that are in Texas, they would receive the assets in Texas or whatever state that they're in, and Nevada is not going to have any taxes involved with it.
But then Texas would, or any other state would take it.
Texas might, yeah, depending on the state, they're going to all have their own rules on taxes and inheritances and stuff. But generally speaking, like I think Texas is state tax free on at least income for sure. But it would be from state to state, definitely.
Okay. And I guess my second question is kind of a second and third questions about I might have my blueprint steps a bit confused, but which one comes first? Should you set up the trust first and then we start preparing LLCs and or C corps or S corps or the anonymous LLC of asset protection? What is the order between? Is the trust first step and then the other entities?
Yeah, that's a good question. So they're kind of unrelated. So the purpose of an LLC is like asset protection, like again, limited liability corporation. So it limits the liability. So if you have like a business or you have investment property, an LLC is good for that, whether or not you have a trust, like it's just a good idea. So they're not always going to be something that coincides with each other. You may have an LLC or not. You might set the trust up and not have any and add some later. The main thing is if you are, let's say you do have the trust and you're adding LLCs and assets later, you want to make sure that at least all of those do get titled to the trust in some way, so that nothing gets left out.
Okay. And about if you have also like properties, or if let's say if you have when I was doing the refinancing, some of the questions were, is the home under trust? I don't know, why does it matter if the home is under trust for a refinancing option?
Yeah, so it's a good idea to title the home to the trust. With refinancing, the reason why they're asking that is sometimes trusts are non-recourse, meaning that like with a individual, if I were to borrow money on a mortgage and like not pay my mortgage, they could ding my credit score. A trust doesn't have a credit score, so sometimes a lender might not do loans on a trust, depending on the bank, depending on the state, depending on the trust. There's a lot of variables there. But that might be one of the reasons they're asking, is they want to make sure that they're not in a position as a bank where they're lending to someone that they can't, go after their credit score or personal assets if a default happens.
Okay, well, thank you so much. You answered all.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. And it looks like we have a question here from Nick. Let me bring Nick on. All right, let me see if Nick has a microphone here tonight. Awesome questions from everyone, by the way. All right, I don't think Nick has a microphone. I'll read his question. So Nick asks, how do you pick a trustee if you don't have someone trusted? So if you don't have someone that's trusted, there are trust management companies. So that's one of the easiest options, is to find a trust management company. And that group, their sole job is to carry out the wishes of your trust. So if you don't have someone you do trust, maybe you don't have family or friends or anyone that's trusted, you can have that. And then you can also still name us as the trusted advisor. So you have them managing it, but anytime there's an investment decision or something like that that needs to be made, they come back to us and we give direction on that side of things. Awesome questions. Let me just check and make sure there are no other questions we missed on Facebook. Okay, looks like we have a couple more questions on Facebook. So William Goffner asks, could you bring Wealth Dynamics into the trust to help advise a trustee for optimal growth for the beneficiaries? Yes, we did answer that. So you could name someone like Wealth Dynamics as a trusted advisor, and the advisor then can help the trustee grow the assets, follow the blueprint per se, and still make sure things are going according to how you would have invested if you were still living. Pharaoh asks, who is typically the entity that verifies the credentials of the beneficiaries if there are requirements like must do 10 backflips? So that would be the trustee. So the trustee would be in charge of distribution. So they would be in charge of, okay, looking at, in this case, the 10 backflips. Did you do 10 backflips? And if the beneficiary couldn't prove that they did, the trustee doesn't have to release the assets to them in that circumstance. So, and not all trusts are that stringent. Some of them are very lenient on distribution. I've seen some that are a little less lenient. I lean towards like, probably you have to earn it, right? Like I don't believe in giving out free handouts. And so I would be someone that maybe didn't have backflips involved, but there would be some stipulation on accessing the funds. All right, guys, I think that those are all of our questions. Awesome questions tonight. This was a great course. And this is probably the most in-depth we've gone on estate planning. We definitely can do more of this topic if you guys would like to learn more about it. Again, if you have not gotten a copy of my book, Blueprints of Financial Freedom, go to jerryfetta.com/B2F. That's the letter B, the number 2, the letter F. If you're a client of ours and you're interested in estate planning and it's phase 2 and you're ready for it, we have our attorney, we have our trust platform. We can help set all that up for you. If you're not a client and you're interested in that, reach out to us, get in touch with Nano Aquino, and that is something we can set up for you as well. Thank you, though. That's all I have for you guys tonight. I'll talk to you again next week. Don't forget Money Monday call with Nano Aquino live. That's Monday coming up, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go live on Facebook and Zoom once again. Until next time, guys, have a great weekend.